board.
Okay. I'd like to say first how I got into physics, because I didn't do physics for school certificate, so at 16 I had done no physics. I went to, I got a job as lab assistant in 1942 and went to Nottingham University College to enrol for an inter-BSc course, which is the equivalent of A-level. The subjects in the course I wanted to do were pure maths, applied maths, chemistry and geography. And geography was a subject I wished to take through to a degree. But they said when I went in that I couldn't do pure maths and geography because they were on the same night. So I had to choose something else. In the end, I chose pure maths, applied maths, chemistry, and I had to stop the geography, and they suggested physics. So I then embarked on physics. I studied for 4 years at the technical college, at the university college, and got into BSc and also subsidiary maths for a degree in physics. And then I wanted to take a further 2 years full-time study to get a degree in physics. I was the only girl doing the inter-BSc courses in physics, and when it came to studying the degree, there were only 2 of us studying for a special degree in physics. I got my degree in 1947 and then did a year in education and then applied for jobs. And in 1948 I got a job at Guildford Technical College in Surrey. And I taught in technical colleges for 7 years. I transferred from Surrey to Nottingham because of my mother's illness, and I taught at Shakespeare Street, Nottingham University College, for 4 years. And in that time got married and had a little girl.
They did.
But at one point, they changed the grading for the staff, the pay grading. And they changed it when I was at Guildford. And so by the time the Guildford people had decided what grade I was going to be on, it was 2 years later. And so I was put on grade B. But when Nottingham decided which grade they would put me on for doing the same teaching, it was grade A, which was not as well paid. And I went to the principal and said, why am I not on grade B? Because everybody doing the same work should be on the same grade. And he said, I hadn't got enough grade Bs to go round, and so the married men have got the grade Bs. So I took umbrance and I looked in the Evening Post, and there was a job as head of physics at Nottingham Girls High School. So I applied for it and got the job. When I got to the school, that was 1957 actually, because I started it in January 57. The studies up to O-level was general science, and that was all the science that anybody in the school did up to O-level. but the head of science, Mary Ashworth, had decided that we didn't do enough science, so she changed the subjects to doing biology and physics with chemistry. It was changed again 2 years later to doing the separate sciences. And from the separate sciences, it was much easier for girls to go to A-levels, full A-levels, and then on to science courses at universities. So it became easier for them to take up sciences. When I started in 1957, there were 4 girls doing the equivalent of A-level physics in the upper 6th, and there were 6 girls doing the equivalent in the lower 6th. When I retired in 1983, there were 35 doing A-level physics in the upper 6th and 36 doing A-level physics in the lower 6th. So the numbers had increased quite amazingly over those 1983. Yes, 1956 to 1983. So that's 27 years. When I looked at the exam results for a recent year of exams, I found that there were only 9 A-level passes in physics. So since 1983, the numbers appear to have gone down. I was on some national committees, amongst them being a joint committee of the Institute of Physics and the Royal Society. And they decided that they wanted to know more about girls and physics. And so a subcommittee was set up to make a study of this. And we brought out a paper in 1982-83 on girls and physics. And it explained the difficulties that girls have in progressing in science because of the lack of science training up to O-level, and also because in a mixed environment the girls are at a disadvantage in studying physics because the boys are much more vociferous and much more determined to say what they've understood than the girls are.
Joan, could you describe how you got to that point in that committee in order to make that paper? You had a bit of a career through various boards,
yes.
Didn't you?
I got on to the joint committee because I had progressed through a series of smaller committees to that point. I started by being recommended by a colleague for the Association of Assistant Mistresses Committee on scrutinising the exam papers in O and A-level physics. So I went on to that committee, which was just a meeting a year. That committee recommended me to the Physics Committee of Cambridge Exam Board, so I went on to that committee and was there for 10 years. And that committee recommended me to the Schools Council Science Committee, so I went on to that. And then the schools council asked for a representative on the joint physics committee between the Institute of Physics and the Royal Society. So that was how I got onto that committee, and that was the one that brought out the paper on with girls and physics.
And I think you will have been known as Joan Fisher throughout that
And
time, won't you?
throughout all those committees I was known as Joan Fisher.
Whereas you were
yes.
born Joan?
And I was born Joan Edwards.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I would like to say one or two words about why I think girls don't take physics. And that is that in mixed classes they feel at a disadvantage because the boys are very overpowering in answering questions. The girls haven't got enough confidence to answer in front of the boys, and so they dislike the subject. I also had an approach. I did manage to get, I would say, about a dozen girls who went on to do engineering in my career. My approach to teaching the girls was, as far as possible, to teach the physics as though it was magic. And I would tell the students what their apparatus they needed to use, how they needed to set it up, and then I would leave them to make observations. And then quite often they had some very surprising observations, which was like magic. I do feel that boys are more single-minded and can understand physics principles a lot more easily than girls can. Girls tend to be multitasking, so that unless they know the whole of the story about something, they really don't know anything. And I think this probably causes more girls not to do physics than to do it.
I think that's very good.
I do wish that more girls would do physics, because I think once they have chosen that subject, it's a very rewarding subject to be involved in for a career. I've had a wonderful career with all sorts of problems, but all sorts of challenges, and I've met some very nice people, and I've had some very interesting students. And in fact, I trained the second woman who became a physics professor in this country, Gillian Gehring, who became professor of physics in Sheffield. And her pal, Rosalind Driver, became a professor of physics in education at Leeds University, and after that at King's College University. So I feel very proud of that fact.
That'll do. That's brilliant. Whoop.